So what I'm doing now, where I'm able to not only help advocate for families and for students, but I'm also able to support teachers. I mean, I speak publicly in educational conferences also. What I'm doing now, I could not have done if I was still working in a school district.
Hey y'all, good afternoon. You are listening and watching Press Play with Coach K. I am your host, Kimberly Monroe. I'm excited to bring a new guest to you all today. With me, I have Mrs. Tangela Murphy. And how are you today, Tangela?
I am good, and you?
I cannot complain at all. It's a beautiful. This a Friday afternoon, so it's a beautiful day. And Miss Murphy is the owner of Little Scholars Tutoring in Converse, Texas. And for those of you who don't know, Converse is a, I guess, suburb or a municipality, if you will, in the San Antonio metro area. And so she joins us today to talk about her journey from educator to, dare I say, education maven. Can I say that?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start out by tell us a little bit about why the decision to become an educator. What drove your desire to do that?
Um, I was born to be an educator. So nothing drove me into the field. I was born to be that. When I was a child, other girls were playing house. I played school, and I was always the teacher. So it was a gift given to me.
Okay, I love that. And can you give us a brief overview? What services does Little Scholars Tutoring offer to the community that it serves?
So we offer reading and math tutoring specifically, and I've cut it down to only those two subjects because if students are struggling in reading and if they're struggling in math, they're also struggling in science and social studies. And we serve students pre-K through 11th grade right now. The math that we go up to is Algebra 1. So there are a lot of kiddos that are in the 11th grade needing to take that Algebra 1 state assessment test. So we support those kiddos.
Okay. And are there any supplementary services or additional programs that are offered through your organization?
Yes. I am a certified special ed teacher, and I have been for years working in special education for several years. So I also offer special ed advocacy for families, for parents whose children are receiving special ed services and they need someone to support them with understanding the IEPs that they are receiving, or go into the IEP meeting to help advocate for the student's needs or for the things that the parents may want.
Okay.
I am also a special ed consultant for teachers. So I currently have teachers that work with me, and they're special ed teachers, and I help guide them through creating IEPs, creating goals, creating PLAFs, all of those things that come along with putting together an IEP and facilitating their IEP meetings. So I'm actually on both ends of the spectrum. I work with the parents, and I have parents that have me as their advocate. I've been sitting in meetings this year, and I also have teachers that I work with, and I typically talk to them on Sundays. That's the only day I have left. And I work with teachers.
Wow.
I also offer transitional services for those high school students that are transitioning from high school to adult life, whether it's to college or whether it's into the workspace. So we do a lot of things. We offer a lot of different services
That's
here.
amazing. And I'll tell you what I like so much about it is if it's to me it feels very much like a holistic approach. So you can certainly serve a student, which in turn of course serves a parent, because that parent can take comfort in knowing that their child is getting everything they need to ensure that they get a quality education. But
Right.
to think that there are parents of students who are trying to navigate areas of the education system that can sometimes be very difficult and challenging. So I would imagine there are parents who probably don't feel that they really understand the full offerings of what their school district might have and how to ask for and get what they need. So I love the
Yes.
fact that you serve on the student side as well as on the parent side, and for teachers to make sure that they are knowledgeable, equipped, prepared to take on students that a lot of people would assume are a challenge, if you will.
Right. A lot of teachers, they know what their student needs, they know why they need it, but they don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I come in to show them the how.
Gotcha. And so for people like me, childless, who don't know what IEP stands for, can you tell us what does IEP mean?
It is the individual. It's an individual plan. Every single special ed student, they have an individual plan that is specifically for them. So there are goals in that plan. There may be objectives in that plan. There are classroom accommodations in that plan specifically for that student. There are accommodations for their state test that they can have in that plan.
Okay.
So whatever works for that student is all written out in that individual plan for that student.
I see. Okay. So that makes so much sense. So you're, um, I guess, there's an assessment, I'm assuming, of what that student needs. And then there are goals and objectives set. And then there's a plan to carry out those goals and objectives.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
That is awesome.
Kind of like a roadmap for the teachers to follow to support those students that are receiving special ed services.
Okay. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, tell me about your career journey. So, according to you, which I love, you were gifted with wanting to be an educator, or with really being an educator. You see it as something that you were born to do. So walk us through your educational path, and then let's talk a little bit about the moment that you decided that there's more that I can be doing to reach the students and the teachers and the families who need me.
It honestly really started when I was 18 years old and I worked at R.R. Moulton Elementary
In Miami, Florida, for those of you who
in
do not
Miami,
know.
Florida. Yes.
Okay.
It started there. And I worked in a special ed classroom. And I think that's where my love for special ed began there. And then I'll skip a couple of years because I've worked in different schools and different school districts for several years after that. But when it came to teaching, I started my actual teaching career here in the state of Texas. This is the state that I obtained my full teaching certificate. I taught in a private school in Miami, but not as a certified teacher. So teaching here, it has been just an amazing journey. All of the different districts I've taught as far as Catula ISD, which is just a few hours away from Mexico. Drive a little bit further and
Okay.
you're right there if you're not careful. Um, and I've taught as far as Seguin ISD. And I think what I really wanted to do was to teach right here in San Antonio. So I taught in different cities, passing all the schools right here in my community. I wanted to teach here in San Antonio. So I did take a position here. I was there for 5 years. When I accepted that position, it was the exact same year that I opened this business.
Wow.
But I was thinking, the business is still new. I'll still work and still run my tutoring center. And so I juggled both business and my teaching job. And I was working on my master's degree all at the same time, just juggled it all. And then we'll fast forward 5 years. A lot of things happened. And the past 2 years, I was sitting at my desk. I'd been promoted. And so now I hadn't taught in the classroom in a while because I've been promoted and moved around up in special ed. And I was sitting at my desk and I just felt this pull on my spirit. Like there's more for you to do. And last year, the pull was so strong. It was stronger last year than ever before. Like I couldn't even sit at my desk. I have to get up and move around and like take a breath and go outside and then come back and try it again. Right. To get my paperwork done, but the pull was so strong. There's more for you to do. Last summer, I was preparing to return back to work in July, And because that's when all of the leaders, they start going back and start prepping for the beginning of the year and all of the things. And it was so loud in my head, no, don't go back.
Mm.
Don't, I didn't even have a real plan, but it was don't go back. And so I wrote that resignation letter, and I called my principal and I said, I'm going to send in my resignation letter. She was like, nope. What do you want? We'll pay you more. Tell us whatever you want. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll stay. But then the voice got louder and it was like, don't go back. There's more for you to do. And this, what I wanted to do, I couldn't do in the school district. So what I'm doing now, where I'm able to not only help advocate for families and for students, but I'm also able to support teachers. I mean, I speak publicly in educational conferences also. What I'm doing now, I could not have done if I was still working in a school district. You know, it is only I'm advocating for the school district.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I sent it, and here I am, and I don't regret one day.
Wow. I love that because people get pushed, if you will, towards entrepreneurship for a variety of reasons. But one of the most common themes that I hear in whatever form it takes is freedom. And for some people it's freedom with my time. For some people it's freedom with my resources. And all of those things are great. But what I love about what you just said is it's freedom to serve in the capacity that I think is best for the people who need me. And that is so incredibly powerful. I don't even have words for how powerful that is. So tell me along the way, because you mentioned a master's degree. Um, what was that like? So you're working as a teacher full time. You're an educator in the classroom. You're working to further your education. You're growing this business. What was that span of time
Chaos. I
like?
still had I still had all of my kids were
And
home.
how many children do you have?
I have five
Okay, so you
kids.
guys have five kids.
Well, they're not even babies
Right.
anymore. All of my children are young adults, and I just have my son home now. But at that time, it was total chaos. There was basketball going on. There was band. There was, just all sorts of extracurricular activities going on, along with everything else I was
Hmm.
doing. Yeah, it was total. I'm not gonna even lie.
Wow. And what
Not sugar.
and what would you say during that time? What was the most challenging part of building, growing, scaling a fairly young business during
Hmm.
that time period?
The most challenging thing I think was learning how to manage my time. There were many times I would find myself crying, like, I can't do this, I can't do this. But then after a while in my head, I could envision it in my head, I would open the one file cabinet, and that was my file cabinet for work. When I left work, I closed it and I opened the one for my business. And that was when I did my payroll, I did my everything I needed to do while I was here at my business. And I closed that file cabinet, went home, and opened up the one to study. And I would study, but I didn't do anything else. That's just how I imagined it in my head, like file cabinets for all of the different things. So just kind of managing my time and making sure that I gave myself time for all of the different things that I had to do, as well as showing up for the kids, showing up for my kids, not just being physically there, but like showing up for my kids. So I think the hardest part was managing the time and making sure everything got a piece of
Hmm.
me
Right.
during that time.
Wow. So you mentioned one thing that made my antenna go up. You talked about in one file cabinet, your business file cabinet, making payroll. When you started, was it just you? Were you able to employ folks in the beginning, or did you have to grow to a point where you were able to support actually having payroll outside yourself?
The day I opened the doors was the day I had a team.
Wow.
And you're not the first one to ask me that. The day I opened it, I never did this
Hmm.
alone. What I have, what I've done, who I've served, I never did it alone. I couldn't, because so many children have come through
Hmm.
here. My first student was a student that needed support with calculus. Well, I'm an English teacher. I do English and special
Right.
ed. So I did have to bring on board a tutor to support that student in calculus, who's now working on her master's degree, and she still keeps up with
That's
me.
amazing.
So,
I love it. And so
yeah.
how big was this team? How many folks were we talking?
There was about four. I think I had about four tutors at the time.
Okay. Wow.
Mhm.
And also tell me, I know you referenced it briefly in the beginning. What drove the decision to focus on math and reading alone, and sort of what trends or patterns did you see that said these are the areas where we feel like the kids we serve need the most assistance?
Okay. Two different things. One thing that drove me in the very beginning, I was like, oh, I can do reading, math, science, and social studies because I have taught all of those subjects. Then I felt like I need to narrow down what I'm going to offer and perfect those
Hmm.
subjects. Okay. So that was one thing. I needed to narrow it down. The second thing was, as I was working in the school district, I was working with middle school and high school kids that was struggling in math, but all of the math was word problems.
Ah.
They couldn't understand what they were reading. So that's where the math teacher would work with me and say, Miss Murphy, can you work with the student on this in this area? And it was just basically getting that student to be able to read and understand what they were reading in order to work out the word problem. And the same thing with social studies. The social studies teacher will come to me and say, Miss Murphy, we have all these kids that are failing social studies, and it's just because it was the reading.
So it's like building on your fundamentals. Obviously, if you're challenged with reading, if it's a struggle for you, anything that requires you to read is then going to be a challenge. So you
Yes, I just saw that the students had gaps. The students had gaps in their foundation. Okay. And so that it was hard for them to reach that grade level curriculum with the gaps in their foundation. And the foundation was the reading and the basic
Mhm,
math.
gotcha.
When you're in high school and you're getting into biology, you're getting into chemistry, you're using math now, you know. But if you're struggling with some foundational skills, if there's gaps in your foundation, it's hard for you to do
Sure, you
that.
can't make progress in those other subjects because you haven't mastered the basics.
Yes.
So, having heard you say that you worked around, it sounds like the South Texas region. And
Mhm.
for those who've followed the show for a little bit, you know I am fairly new to Texas. I've been here just about 3 years as this episode is being recorded. And the one thing that has blown my mind the most is how confusing the school system is here. So coming from South Florida, where you've got your county school system that's broken up into districts, and we're pretty much all on the same calendar. Curriculum requirements are pretty much the same, all of that. Texas has what's called independent school districts. And so when it comes to especially something like special education, how does that look for a special ed instructor who has worked across multiple ISDs? Are things consistent? Are they that much different that there's a challenge moving from district to district? Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
The difference comes in with services that are offered. So what I found is a lot of the smaller school districts, meaning there may be two or three elementary schools, there may be one high school. The smaller school districts may not offer the same services as the larger school districts. But law is law. All the school districts have to follow the law, right? Um, and so it's really in the services. What I saw, the services that students were provided. You may have a student with dyslexia. The larger school districts may have a dyslexia teacher. The smaller districts may not have a
I
dyslexia
see.
teacher, but they may offer like an extra reading intervention or
Right.
something, right? So that's really the difference that I saw between the school districts. A lot of the districts use many of the districts use the same platform when it comes to creating their individual educational plan. That's what the IEP means. When they're creating their IEPs, many of them use the same platform. So, like when I go into school districts and I sit in on meetings, I can almost tell them what page to go to to find certain things and make these
Right.
changes or add this
Hmm.
to it. But some of them use different platforms, which is fine, but the verbiage is still the same. You're still creating those goals. You're still creating those PLAFs. The evaluation from the LSSPs or the DIAGs are still, you still have that information to read and review for your students. But the only difference is like the services that may or may not be offered or provided in the different school districts just because of their size.
Sure. And the students that you serve through Little Scholars, um, do they come from across various ISDs?
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
I see.
Yep. They come from across various ISDs and charter schools as well. So I have public school students and charter school students that are coming through here. And I always like to know before the students come what school they're attending, because one of our charter schools in our area, if our student is in the eighth grade in that school and they're coming for math tutoring, I know that they're already taking like pre-algebra, or they may already be taking algebra, right? Because that charter school is more accelerated. So then, like, their eighth graders may be taking algebra and taking algebra star tests. So that's where we need to start and prep them. And then their ninth graders are taking like geometry, right? So I just always need to know what school they're going to, so that we know as a team where we need to start and how we need to support that student.
Sure. That makes so much sense. And it's interesting because to talk about running a business and understanding who your customer is, that's such a foundational part of any business model. Who do you
Mhm.
serve? That avatar, what do they look like? And for you to come equipped with that knowledge of, okay, if this child comes from X school, I already know that this is sort of their baseline for where they may
Mhm.
likely be. So I know where I need to get started. And to think through all the nuances of the things that business owners need to know about the market that they serve. A person like me, I have done education in a different capacity, more community based health, wellness, that kind of thing. So out there in the community, you kind of get what you get. You don't know what people don't know when you present to them. But that gives you a better idea of at least I know where this student is coming from. And so I know what their educational plan or their curriculum looks like for that school, basically. Gotcha. So, okay, so you mentioned your children and you mentioned all the things. You mentioned sports. We talked about the chaos that was. If now I know that there was a time when you offered a sports program through your
Mhm.
tutoring center. And I think that is just so I'm about to date myself. That's so dope. And it's so unique. So tell me what led to that? How did that even come about?
Um, to be really honest, the sports program came about. It was December, our first year, and we were like, hey, you know what? All of our tutoring students have kind of dropped off because they're on Christmas break. Let's offer basketball because we can get them to start practicing now, and then in the spring start the season. That's kind of how it started. As I started meeting our athletes, all of our athletes at the time lived on the east side over by Davis Scott YMCA. And those boys just touched my heart so much. They had grown so much just working with us. It had gotten to where I was able to open up my center and tutor those boys because they needed the support in reading and in math in school, as well as supporting them athletically. They learned skills. They learned skills like how to work as a team. Um, our coach would tell them all the time, this is a team sport. Basketball is a team sport. So they had to learn how to work together and stop hogging the ball, right? And she would say, if you want to play an individual sport and be a star, go run track. Right.
Right.
So there was just so many things that they learned coming in with us, coming into our basketball team. I had a family come to me one time, and I didn't know the whole season. They couldn't pay for games. They couldn't pay for uniforms. I figured it out. I paid for his uniform. I figured out how to get his games paid for. And at the end of the season, his dad came to me and he said, Miss Murphy, if it wasn't for your basketball team, I don't know where my son would be right now. And I was like, oh, like we're all family. We're the LST family. And he was like, no, we are homeless. We live in a homeless shelter, and we just didn't have the money for him to be on your team, but you still found a way for him to play.
Wow.
And I was like, ugh, I didn't even know. Like, I just didn't even know either one parent would, both parents were never there at the same time. It was one or the other. And I just didn't know how much of an impact we were making on, on athletes, on families at that time. Um, it was just really incredible. It was just an incredible experience. So yes, it was. We were LST athletics, and we had our basketball team, middle school, and our high school boys. Oh my goodness, those high school boys called me Coach Mom. Coach
I
Mom,
love that.
Coach Mom. You have some snack in your car.
I love that. And
you know.
to go back to the idea of your program really being a holistic one, because there are people are multifaceted, and for some folks it would be, this is a tutoring program, this is a tutoring center, what we do here is we tutor kids. But to think about the benefits of physical activity, number one, in and of itself, to think about the benefits of team sport, like you mentioned, and everything that it teaches a child as they're transitioning into adulthood, to find yet another avenue to be able to serve students and to serve your community, I think that is fantastic. And I know you mentioned to me earlier that it's something that you stopped offering because of COVID. And are there
Because of
plans
COVID.
to bring that program back at some point in the future?
Yes, we have talked about bringing it back. I really want to bring it back just because of the impact we were making on so many kids. But because of COVID, we stopped it because I was like, oh, it's just too close quarters,
Correct.
we're all too close. The gyms were always packed and full and all that jazz. But yes, we are thinking about bringing back our athletic program. We may not do it all year like we were doing it before. It may be like, okay, we're doing basketball for the summer, or we're doing basketball for the spring, and just do it for the season. But we are definitely looking at bringing back our basketball
Okay,
team.
perfect.
Yeah.
Now, so to speak of summer, you also have summer enrichment programs. So let's talk a little bit about how did that come to be?
So our summer program was mainly because as a teacher, when students came back, it was like starting all over with them. So here at my tutoring center, I wanted to offer a summer program. And it first started off as we're going to do a reading summer program to keep kids reading all year. Um, and so that's what we did in the past. We just ran a full reading summer program, and it was mainly to prevent that summer slide, which is where kids are not reading for June and July, and they come in mid-August, and they have forgotten a lot of the things that they've learned. So yeah, that's where the summer program really all started, just to keep kids reading through the summer. This summer, I put a little spin on it, and we're not doing reading. Instead, it is going to be scientifically spectacular. It is going to be a science summer program, and the kids will be engaged in so many different things. It's going to be
Oh my
amazing.
goodness, I love that. That sounds like fun. And to talk about the summer slide, so I can only imagine what it must have been like to have students come back after going through
Hmm.
virtual learning during the pandemic, right? And I've had countless
Hmm.
conversations with people, with parents, and I'll remind those who don't know, I am not a parent. I don't have children. I don't know the first thing about navigating the school system at all. But to have talked to parents about the struggles of distance, remote learning for children, Can you talk a little bit
Hmm.
about what that looked like when your kids came back, having basically gone virtual for almost 2 years?
Almost
What
two
was that
years.
like?
It's sad. It's really sad. I'll talk about how it is right now. Like not when they first came back, but right now. Even today, I still get phone calls. I can't tell you how many second grade students I have in this tutoring center. What grade were those babies in during COVID,
Right.
right? Um, and that's where they still are. That's where they still are academically. I'm still teaching all of those basic phonetic sounds to those second grade babies because when COVID hit, they were in kindergarten. So it's really sad when I get them in and I look at all my second graders, my third graders, they were all that kindergarten, first grade level when COVID hit. And I'm just like, this isn't just Converse. This is all over, right? I cannot help every child all over. What I can do is, which is what I am doing, which is why I left my job to do this. I am speaking to educators. Indirectly, I'm helping students because I'm helping other educators, you know? So, like my conference that I have this month, I'm speaking to educators in Georgia. Those educators will go back and take what I've learned, what I've taught them, and apply it in their classroom. So indirectly, and they will share it with another teacher who can apply it in their classroom, and they will share it and they will use it, right? So indirectly, I'm able to help and serve more students than I could possibly touch myself.
And to think about that ripple effect of one decision, to listen to that very loud voice in your head that said don't come back. you know
Yeah.
i
Yeah.
I love that so much. So when it comes to the advocacy piece of it, could you have ever envisioned in the very beginning, when your focus was primarily tutoring students, was that seed always there, or did it sort of morph along the way where you realized there were some additional needs and you had the capacity, you and your team, to fill those needs?
Hmm. Um, that idea started to grow within me when took on the position. I took on the position of at my school district. It was called course leader, special ed course leader, and I was training special ed teachers and general education teachers also. And that's when I realized these teachers are not serving these students the way they should, partially because they don't know how to. And the other part may be because they don't want to. It's too time consuming and teachers are already overwhelmed. And so I started advocating for my students on my caseload on my campus. But when I stepped out of the school district, I was like, if those few kids needed that kind of advocacy on my campus, there must be more. How many other kids are suffering? How many other kids are not receiving services? How many other families don't understand what's in their student's IEP? And so that's when I opened myself up to advocacy. And I've had parents say things to me like, Miss Murphy, I never understood what was happening in those meetings until you came. And I would not allow the meeting to close if my parent didn't understand. And if the campus couldn't explain it in such a way for my parent to understand, I would then explain it. I call it doing a family friendly IEP meeting. We call it ARDS here in Texas. Do a family friendly ARD. Make sure your families understand what you're saying because special ed is a whole language. And I've been in meetings myself, whether I was observing another teacher in the meeting or I was facilitating the meeting, the parents would sit there clueless because we're speaking our special ed language. It's a total language, right? And so I just really wanted to support those families that I saw come on my campus that wanted support and needed support. And I'm like, there has to be more. It's not just isolated to
Right.
my campus. And when I opened myself up, people just started coming and they were like, we need your
And
help.
it's interesting
So,
how the application may be different, but the concept is the same. When you talked about drilling down on math skills and reading skills, because those foundational skills made it possible for students to excel in other areas. To think with parents, it's the
mhm,
same exact thing. So if that parent is sitting in a meeting where they're discussing their child's educational plan, and they don't at a base level understand what's being stated, like you said before, there are gaps in
mhm,
their foundation, so then they don't have the
mhm.
tools to help their child excel. So same exact concept, just different application, but it's all related. And so it seems like you have a framework, essentially, for how you serve your students, how you serve your teachers, how you serve your parents. It's filling those knowledge gaps so that all of the best
Yes,
decisions can be made. And if that understanding's not there, that child can't move forward. And that's a very basic
right.
thing to understand. Wow. Wow. So what's next for you? As you kind of look out future state, and you're thinking about continuing to grow and to scale, what's next for you guys?
As far as the tutoring center, I would like to have more than one center in our city. I'm even thinking of opening up a center in the Florida area. I don't know if it'll be Miami, but in the Florida area. Um, but I think the biggest next step that I'm actually working towards right now is getting contracts with different school districts in the state, within the state of Texas right now. Houston, Humble ISD, um, uh, Katy ISD, that school districts, being able to have contracts with those school districts to go in and provide professional development to their
and
teachers.
and that's amazing. And to, again, we're talking that ripple effect. To think, if you had made the decision, this very safe and comfortable decision, to
Very safe
stay
and
at your
comfortable.
job and maintain status quo, you could have certainly helped the students in your classroom, you could have certainly helped the students that come to your center. But to know the reach that you will be able to have by providing those professional development services to other teachers who can then better serve their students, their parents, their communities. The reach is so much greater, which
Right,
is remarkable.
right,
Yeah. So
right.
I like to ask my guests some questions about just some of your personal stuff. What are you reading? Because if there's one thing I know, most entrepreneurs I know, they like to read, and to whether it's staying up on industry knowledge or gaining some professional development themselves. What's on your nightstand?
So I read a lot of books on leadership. I've read a lot of books on leadership. I can say that the one book that really touched me and really gave me confirmation for my business is the T.D. Jakes books,
Mm,
Destiny. I read Destiny in like
wow,
24 hours.
that good.
it was, it, yeah, it just spoke to me so much. I literally read it in 24 hours
Okay.
6 years ago. And that really confirmed that gave me confirmation. Yes, I need to open this tutoring center. Before I knew that I would be doing these things that I'm doing now, I was like,
Hmm.
yes, I need to do this. Um, I keep like, okay, I have this book here called Caffeinated
Okay.
Learning. You see, I've been tabbing it. And so this book here, because I'm doing PDs, I'm doing professional development trainings now, and speaking in educational conferences. This book here kind of keeps me up on different things I can do to keep um, my my guest engaged. And then I always feel like that people should be always open to feedback, no matter how fabulous I think I am, right? um, I need to always be open to feedback. And so this is the other book that I am digging into. Thanks for
Okay.
the feedback.
Awesome. I
So
think
yeah.
that is so true. And even in my other profession, one of the things that I do, it's not even like a formal 360 because I don't get HR involved. But when we do performance feedback, when I do it for my team, I have someone that I work with, who she does surveys for me that she pushes out to my team so that they're truly anonymous, and then she aggregates, the responses and everything, and she sends them back to me. And I tell them, just, I don't know who you are. I can't identify you. I don't deploy the survey. Somebody else does it for me, but I need to be honest about how am I doing as a manager? Let me know, because as great as I might think I am, somebody else might be like, yeah, not so much. So I think that's really important to be open to it, and to even be reading a book that tells you how to gather and internalize and what to do with all the feedback that you're getting, and then even to ask the right questions, because I think sometimes when we're polling an audience, whether it's a customer satisfaction survey or some other type of survey, it's really also knowing what are the right questions to even be asking to get what you need. So
And the thing is, feedback typically makes you
mhm,
feel uncomfortable. But the thing is, growth does not happen in your comfort
not
zone.
at all.
The only way that you grow is to be
Yes.
uncomfortable. And so receiving that feedback, feeling that discomfort, and then growing
I could
from
not
that.
agree more. So I'm very curious
Mhm.
about when you are not being education superwoman, what are you up to when you're not educating, advocating, training? What is Miss Murphy's downtime look like?
Um, I'm kind of always doing that. Even when I
Right.
am on vacation, I'm like, oh, my students could learn about this. Let me take these pictures. But I like to travel. I like to road trip.
Okay.
So my husband and I have a little small travel trailer, a little RV, and we hitch it onto the back of the truck, and we just go.
Oh
Um,
wow. Now what are some of your favorite places that you've been or sites that you've seen?
I think my favorite place is Colorado.
Okay.
I
Wow.
think my favorite place is Colorado. It literally looks like a postcard. It's so beautiful.
Wonderful. I love that. So to be, and see, that's the other thing about it, to go back to freedom, in addition to all of the other ways that freedom plays out, you have the ability when you need to pack up, disconnect
Hmm.
from the world, hop in your truck, and you guys can just go
And we
and
can just go. Yeah.
and just go.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like to be here working, but if we wanted to, we could just hitch up the trailer and
Hmm.
go. But yeah, the freedom is like when things are happening and within the family unit, I'm able to have my team continue all of my tutoring sessions and keep everything running while I'm taking care of business with whatever's going on with the family. So yeah,
Yeah.
we just came back from a trip in January. We drove through up to Georgia and down to Florida and back, the MLK weekend, because I was
Okay.
in Georgia on MLK Day, at the MLK Memorial. That was like my biggest bucket list, I guess, thing that I wanted to do in Atlanta. So but my center continued to run. My team kept the kids going through. I have a camera here. I can see what's happening. So
I love it. That's awesome. What was the most like unexpected challenge of doing all of this? Sometimes we have it laid out in our brain sort of what this process may look like. And I was joking with one of the young ladies. I'm a volunteer running coach, and she and I were talking at practice the other day, and we were talking about adulthood, right? And the straight line that we all thought adulthood would be. So as far as entrepreneurship and building and growing your business, what was the most unexpected challenge that you faced?
um, I think the most unexpected challenge was the one thing that I didn't know when I first started, and this is kind of off of education, it's more business, is knowing how to build not only your business, but build your business credit, building business credit, having a relationship with creditors so that you can get the things that you need for your business. Um, that was something I didn't know, which made it super challenging in the very beginning because everything came out of my pocket. Now, these are things that I know: how to build my business, where to get business credit, how to get the technology, how to get the bookshelves, how to get the things that I need. Now it's better, right? But in the very beginning, a lot of small businesses, they don't know these things. So the one teacher that I am coaching, she's wanting to open up a tutoring center, and that's the first thing I'm telling her. Hey, you need to get your EIN number. Get your DUNS number. Get those Net 30 accounts. Get those. Do this, do that. Don't put your social in anything, right? So because that was like the biggest thing for me. She was like, "How do I get the desk? And how do I get the this? And I don't have the money." And that was a huge thing for me, getting the materials and the equipment that I needed to even open my doors. Um, so not knowing that kind of made it difficult.
Sure. No, I can only imagine. And it's funny how much of that turns into learn as you go for a lot of people, right? And make your missteps and then you course correct. And the other part I think I love so much about the coaching and the advocacy part is that you really get the opportunity to teach people how to fend for themselves, for lack of better phrasing. Whether it's a parent giving them the confidence to make sure that they're present and understand what their child needs and to be able to move forward. The same with the teacher who looks at your path and says, why can't I do that? And I really love people who are patient enough to teach and to sort of guide other people through the things that they don't know. And then not to be afraid to say, hey, when I got started, this is what I didn't know. And so let me tell you so you don't make some of the same mistakes that I did.
Right.
And a lot
Right.
of people will let you think that it was all gravy, the path that they
Mhm.
took, and they don't want to tell you what their mistakes and their missteps were. And so there's something to be said about saying, hey, let me tell you where I didn't get it right so that your journey can look a little bit different than mine and hopefully for the
Exactly.
better.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was not always rainbows and glitter
Right.
and unicorns.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So tell me where can actually before I ask you that, I want to ask you one more thing. Um because if there's one thing I know about entrepreneurship, there's a viewpoint that some folks can have. What is the best insult that you've ever received as you've gone along this journey?
As an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
the best insult is they'll either say you're doing too much or you're doing the most.
Mm.
If not me, then who?
Right. Yeah.
If not me, then who?
I love that. Can I put a period like right there? Period. Yeah. And I don't even have a follow up for that because I think you summed it up very, very, very well. Um, I have a friend that she's been an entrepreneur for a long, long, long time, and people call her all sorts of crazy. And she often hears, "Oh, so how's your little business going? You still doing that little thing that you've been working on?" And it's interesting how people can take those jabs, but you stand so confidently in knowing that you are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you were born to do. And if there's one thing that's evident is that the results speak for themselves. um you don't have to prove anything to anybody. You can just look at the fruit of your labor and say, number one, look at the people that I've served, look at the people that I've helped, but also I have the freedom to do exactly what I want to do, how I want to do it, because I made this leap. And that's tremendous. That is huge. Yeah.
My prayer is always my prayer is always Place me where you want me to be. Send me who you need me to help. I am your servant. And so I don't worry about who's coming or if they're coming or if they're going to register. If they're God will give me who he wants me to help. And that's
And
that.
yeah, and that's that.
And so if it is advocacy and consulting and PD trainings and conferences and tutoring, that's where he needs me. That's what he needs me to do.
And you will continue to do the most because that is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. That's right.
Yeah.
I love it. So, where can we find you on social? Facebook, Instagram, any of it? Where can we find you?
Okay. So I do have a couple of different places where I can be found. So Little Scholars is on Facebook, and we are Little Scholars Tutoring, and it is S.A. Little Scholars Tutoring,
Okay.
and that's on Facebook. Um, on We also have an Instagram, and my Instagram is LST. Remember, anytime you see LST, it means Little Scholars Tutoring.
Okay.
Is LST underscore educational underscore consulting. Um, we are also on the TikTok, and the TikTok, we are at S.A. teacher mentor.
Okay. The TikTok. I,
The
And I'll
TikTok.
put
I struggle with the TikTok. I'm here to tell you. Like, I can't even.
I am still getting used to the TikTok. My daughter was looking at it and she was like, Mom, your TikToks are pretty good.
Okay.
I was like, really?
Listen, if there's a certain generation that if they tell you that you got the TikTok, then you know what you're doing. And I've not been told that. So, you
Well, you will never catch me
know.
dancing
Right.
on TikTok.
Not gonna happen.
Yes, no.
So, Miss Murphy, thank you so much for stopping by today. And thanks so much for sharing your journey with us. I am 100% sure that our listeners and viewers will find it insightful, inspiring. Our prayer is that you have continued success. And you guys know where to find her online. And what's your website? Do you have a website as well?
Yes. My website is salittlescholarstutoring.com.
SALittleScholarsTutoring.com. So you guys go find her there. If you are an educator in need of coaching, if you are a parent, teacher, student in need of her services, there's no doubt in my mind that she will deliver. You all have been listening and watching Press Play with Coach K. I am your host, Kimberly Monroe, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye.